Happy New Year! We are here, y'all. We back. I missed y'all so much. I say I need to take a break, but oh my goodness, I love connecting with you guys so much. Happy New Year. We have somebody for the first time, y'all. Kendra. We'll
Thank you.
People to join before she introduces herself, guys, but she's a nonprofit just like you all. So just go ahead as you're joining in, guys. Give me your New Year's, if you have a New Year's resolution, a New Year's intention, if you have a New Year's ritual or something that you do that kind of gets you ready for this time, help us out, y'all. A lot of people are rebranding. A lot of people have new websites for the new year. Drop your website as well, guys. If you have a brand new website, I'm going to be doing reviews next week, so drop them too, guys. But just tell me how you're doing on this new year. I know a lot of you all are still vacationing too. So we'll give a couple of minutes for people to join, and we will come on and start talking funding. Today we are talking funding. Hello. We have some people watching. Got Facebook, got YouTube. Drop your state, guys. Drop your state, your New Year's resolution or your New Year's word. Some people do one word. Let me see. There we go. All right, so we will go ahead and jump in because we have a lot of you all. You all must be off and ready because we have a lot of you all already watching here. So I'm not going to waste your time because that's one of my top New Year's things is always maximizing the time that you have here. So we are going to jump right in, especially for those who will be watching this recorded as well. Kendra from Colorful Dreams, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kendra. My nonprofit is called Colorful Dreams. Obviously, we're 501c3. Created with the help of obviously Tracy. We are located in New Orleans, Louisiana, and we do youth mentorship. And we're kind of expanding a little bit now, but our focus is disadvantaged youth. And our mission is creating, fulfilling, and believing in our youth one dream at a time.
That is awesome. When did you get created, or when did you create the nonprofit? Was it about a year ago?
Yes, it was exactly a year to this month.
That is awesome. Well, happy anniversary as well. You had an interesting first year, I assume.
Oh yeah, absolutely. With my first year being in the midst of a pandemic, absolutely, it was rough. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I say if as a nonprofit, if this was one of your first years, or if this was your first year, this was like, if you made it through this year, you're good to go.
Because absolutely. Because like we talking about when it came to funding and everything, you had to navigate all of those shifts and changes. So it was a lot of work, a lot of depression from not being able to push your dream the way you wanted to push your dream. You know what I'm saying? Because of everything else that was going on in the world. So a lot of times you get discouraged, especially if this was your first year and funding was all on your back,
Absolutely. And it's important to I think that there's a saying that goes, the more you show up and actually talk about the authentic things that's going on with you, the more you're able to help other people. Because almost everybody was struggling with that this year, we had to pull a couple of people off of just wanting to dissolve and be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people struggled this year, but a lot of people learned a lot too. They learned that, okay, how can I pivot? That's been the word of the year. How can I pivot? How can I still be of maximum assistance? Because one of the biggest things was a lot of nonprofits were like, okay, I can't really ask now, or I can't really move now because there's so many other issues. So it's like, okay, how do I make sure my nonprofit is a part of those issues that are needing help as opposed to something separate? So what would you say you learned from 2020?
I learned, honestly, at the end of the day, to just don't give up. No matter how hard it gets, no matter how bad it looks, don't give up. Just keep pushing. Eventually something will come out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You may do a lot of pivoting. You may just spin. You know what I mean? The whole time. But really, you may just be spinning in circles. But at the end of the day, just don't stop. As long as you keep going, things will eventually fall into place, because all of us were put in the place to create these nonprofits for a reason. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, we just got to trust that, what we're supposed to have for them will come through eventually. Not in our time, but on time,
That's it.
So
that is powerful. That is very powerful, because a lot of times you have, even especially for the new year, this can be a tricky time for people, because sometimes they'll have all this huge goal and vision. And if things start to kind of like not look like the way that they pictured it, it's very easy to say, oh, okay, well, I guess I guess I'm going to go ahead and give up. But instead, taking each moment as a learning lesson. If you're keeping on moving, if you're moving, no matter what, if it went good, if it didn't go good, if nothing happened, you're learning no matter what. You're like, oh, I won't do that again, or let me adjust that, or that didn't work out. So that's so powerful. I don't want anybody to breeze over that. Just keeping on going, keep putting one foot in front of the other. And you may slow down, you may start moving really slow, but just not stopping and keeping going, like you said. Another second thing that you said that was really important was you were saying that if it was put in you, if it's something that you've been, this is something that's been pulling you. Majority of our nonprofits, this is a passion project for them. This is something that they've been called to. They feel like they've been called to this for some time. So if it's there, it's for a reason. Just trusting that being there in itself is enough reason for people to go on.
Exactly.
Before we jump into the funding part of it, and congratulating you on receiving your first 2 grants, right?
Three, but yeah.
And 3 is my number this year, y'all. We'll talk about that momentarily too. But receiving your first 3 grants, even in 2020, even during a pandemic, even feeling depressed and maybe not wanting to push on or whatever, still making that progress. Before we dive into that, let's talk about your New Year's ritual. This is still kind of that New Year's weekend for a lot of people, where there's still like, some people do a big house clean. Some people do, Robert said, congratulations and hello.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for
joining. Yes. So, but tell us about what you did for New Year's, or anything that you, anything that came to you specifically about this New Year.
Okay. So, like I said, this was my first year with Colorful Dreams. I've been a business owner for years, but this year was my first one with Colorful Dreams. And so after the year I had, and then obviously, like you just said, getting my first grants towards the end of the year, for me, that kind of catapulted me. So with that being said, it had my mind going, because I was like, okay, now you finally getting grants. You've been waiting on this. Now it's time for you to actually really put one leg in front of the other. So with that, I spent the new year creating and thinking of new ideas and new programs to bring to Colorful Dreams. So instead of me spinning it out in the streets, I was like, okay, well, here you go. Some thoughts came to me as far as some new programming I could put into place that I think is much needed. And I just spent time putting those programs together. So I sat in my house, I grabbed my computer, and I just start typing. And whatever came to me, I put it in the program. So I think I came up with 3 new programs.
Wow.
Yeah, right before the new year hit. And I was like, hey, it's here, so just go. And reached out to my guy, like, hey, I need to put this on the website. We need to go. Huge areas of funding, you know what I mean? So that's how I spend my New Year's. And from here on out, that's how I'll spend every New Year.
That is a great way to spend your New Year, to really get those downloads, to get those visions. I was looking, how you have your memories pop up on your phone on other New Year's and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I've done all kind of things. I've done everything you could probably do during a New Year's season. But what I really found is, when I get quiet, that's what I like about this holiday time. It's pretty much almost the only time, coming from business perspective, since you're in business as well, that people, they'll message you whenever, on a Sunday at 2:00, at 3:00, but during the holiday is really the only time that people really do everybody takes that time. And, of course, I spend a lot of time with my family, but that seems like the time where I get the most ideas too. When things quiet down, that's when things get clearer. So it's important to create that space for yourself, like you did. Nelson said congratulations as well. Oh, his new book was coming on Amazon too. Congratulations, Nelson. Wow, a lot of people coming into this new year with some amazing things. So that is great. Give us a sneak peek of some of your of one of your programs that you created.
Oh, so one of the programs that I created is it's been on my mind for a while. That like kids grow out of foster care. Eventually they're kind of at 18, they're kind of sent out here and they're on their own. So one of the programs that I came up was a transition assistance program. Where we provide services to basically teach them financial, hygiene, just all around all the things that normally otherwise you would get from a parenting course or something like that. Those things that they don't get in foster care. We built the program to basically be able to give them those services.
I love that. Creating that community, creating that family for those who, because a lot of times, one thing that I say is a lot of times people are finding their tribe. So sometimes their blood family is not the ones that end up supporting them. Sometimes it's opposite. Sometimes they're the ones turning them down, or sometimes they just don't have it. You know what I mean? But it's awesome when we are able to find the things that motivate us, find the things, get to a place where we can give, and then give back to those who don't have that community, who don't have that, that mother or that parent or that cousin
or
who's
just
going
anybody,
words of wisdom, anybody, and so that's amazing. One of the biggest things that we're going to be doing is talking about mentorship tips, mentorship help, how you can really create a dynamic mentorship program. Because one thing I find in nonprofits is sometimes you might have a mentorship idea, or you might have something that you want to transition to a group of individuals, but that in between is the part that's hard. It's like, okay, but how do I get them to really get it? You know what I mean? And so, but when you can do that, that's when you really start to create that impact. So that's awesome. So guys, if you have any type of mentorship program, or if you're doing anything mentorship related, put "that's me" under here so I can make sure that I'm in the right direction. I'm going to be helping a lot of people in that area, because I want to say about 90% of our nonprofits have some type of mentorship program that they're doing. They want to give back in some type of way where they're really mentoring. But when those individuals, your youth, the foster kids and things like that, or the ones who've aged out, when they get that family, when they get that community, and then 10 years from now, they're able to give back to the nonprofit.
Oh yeah, that's exactly
like
that's what it's about.
That's what it's all about. Absolutely. So we're going to dive right into our subject, guys, which is funding. Before we do that, we talked about New Year's. I want to tell you guys a little bit about what I'm doing for the new year. Same thing as Kendra. I really have found these last couple of years having that time to pause that's my favorite time, to really pause, spend time alone, spend time in meditation, spend time in prayer, and really just allow myself to kind of like set that foundation of what my intentions are for the next year. I like to use intentions rather than resolutions, because the thing about it is sometimes things shift and change, and you want to be fluid in that area. You want to be willing to say, you know what, okay, this is my intention, but you know what, the world is changing. Ultimately, as nonprofit founders, we want to be of most impact to the world, right? You know what I mean? So if it adjusts, you want to adjust with it. So one of the things that I think I heard, what is the name? There was a guy who did this last year, and I thought it was awesome. Sean T. Do you know Sean T? He's in the fitness.
I don't think I've seen him.
Fitness aspect. He did Insanity. He did 90X. A couple other, but he does a lot of fitness videos. Anyways, he was saying that he had one word last year. He picked one word, and that's what he focused on. Because that simplicity is really, and I was like, you know what? That's simple. I like that, because I like to keep it really simple. My number this year has been 3. And one of my main things I've been doing this year that I'm transitioning to, have been transitioning out of the old year, is focusing on 3 priorities per day. Because a lot of times, focus is the main thing for entrepreneurs that really kind of sets them, I like to say, throws them off the horse. I start my day, I do this analogy where I'm on the horse, I'm in control, I'm riding it. Some days you lay back and you like fall to the side. Some days, some days you got no hands on, you just going. And that's when you've lost your focus, you've lost track. The world has started to set your day for you. People's emergencies or lack of preparation have started to kind of invade the situation. And so staying focused is a huge key. A lot of times we have great ideas. We have great visions. That's not the problem. The problem is keeping that focus. And so with that being said, I figure if you have 3 things you're focused on, and I've been hearing this from several people for several years, but I've just had a hard time doing it. Because, we have so many things and we're like, no, but I need to do that, and I need to do this, and I need to do
that
this.
become more important.
That become more
important. Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the truth of the matter is that if you're focused on all these things that you're deeming important and you haven't prioritized, more than likely, you're not really going to get much of anything done.
No,
you know what I mean?
They're just gonna keep rolling over.
It's just rolling over, and you're getting frustrated at the same time. And so that's been one of the key. Not to mention, at this day and age, with everything going on with COVID-19 and things like that, one of the things we've all learned as a group is that life is short. You want to make sure you're present for what's going on too. If you're busy moving, going, how can you be present for your children, for the people around you, for, to just really be able to absorb it and let it sink in and enjoy the moment, So that's been the big thing for me, is setting 3 things, 3 priorities a day, guys. If you can switch to that, and of course you'll do other things. Of course you got to eat, you got to do this, you got to do that. But those 3 priorities that if you get these 3 things done, it's moving you towards your vision. That's been huge. And with that, I brought 3 words into this year. And my 3 words that I'm bringing in is, number 1, simplicity. Keeping it simple. If it's too complicated, you get frustrated. That's it. Number 2 is health. Keeping your health up. You can't run this mission, you can't run this vision and bring it into fruition if you don't have the proper fuel in your body. And when I say health, I mean mentally, spiritually, and physically. You know what I mean? The right people around you, the right thoughts that are coming in your head, the right self-care and things like that. And then lastly is mentorship. So it's funny that we start the year with a program that's mentorship based, because mentorship, I really feel like mentorship is shifting to the new form of education. Now that shift's going to take a long time, but almost like when people can hear it from somebody who's been there and done that, that's worth 4 years sometimes of education. That's worth, because they can see it in real time. So really finding out ways to create better mentors and better mentorship programs. So with that, we will jump into our funding and all about funding. But before we do, let me see here. Great morning and Happy New Year, everyone. I have a question. Good. Guys, if you have any questions about funding, or if you have any questions about mentorship, this is your time. Kendra's the expert in that area. So go ahead and ask your questions, right? That's no problem. I have a question, being that you just received your first grants of mini grants. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for those words of affirmation.
Thank you.
This is a good question, though. How did you fund your business the first year, Kendra?
Okay. So, I mean, this topic is very, very personal to me, so I'll share it with you guys. This is 2021, and July of 2019, my mom passed away. And just for reference, you guys can see all of her stuff in the back. So this had been a dream of mine since I can't tell you how far back it goes, but I throw that in because it's extremely important. So when my mom passed away, I got a little, money from her passing away. And the first thing I did with the money that I got from her was I created Colorful Dreams. It had been a dream of mine. My mom was like, in my eyes, the earth angel. She gave everything she had to the world. And so I wanted to make sure I carried that on. So to answer the question, while giving you kind of an idea of why it's so important to me, like I said, my funding came out of my pocket. And man, when I tell you, it was tough, because a lot of us don't realize, like, you could take a large sum of money and you can drop it into creating your nonprofit. But we forget sometimes that it actually has to stand after you create it. And I think that's where I fell short, because I took everything I had and I poured it into it to get it created. And then I forgot that once it was created, I had to have money to be able to maneuver throughout the year, or to be able to bring the programs to fruition and things of that nature. So I think that's where it gets a little tough. And I want to bring that up, because if you're a new nonprofit, you're going to experience that. You're going to experience a part where it's stagnant. And it gets stagnant, and especially with these times right now, it's going to be a lot of stagnation. So you want to make sure you keep that in mind. So in the beginning, I would say don't pour so much out of your pocket into it. Do what you can, but still make sure. And before you create anything, make sure you have your financial budget and the budget of how much it's gonna cost to
Yeah.
actually run it. You know what I mean? Because I didn't do that. That's one of the things where I messed up. All I worried about was pouring into it to get it started, but I never created a budget to know how much I was gonna need for it to stand. So basically it was all funded by me, and until I started getting grants, it was funded by me. I ran out, got an office space, and created an office space, and I went full throttle. Tracy will tell you, I
Yeah.
went full throttle on my business, and I didn't remember that, hey, somebody got to pay that bill every month,
Gotta
you know?
keep it going.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So a lot of it will come out of your pocket for a little bit, because you got to build a reputation, or you know what I'm saying, you got to build a reputation. More often than not, most grants want to know that you're actually doing something with the money that they're going to invest in you.
Yes.
So they want to see results, and unfortunately for us first years, we don't really have results because we're just trying to get it going. So you have to be mindful of that. Like everything comes out of pocket. If you want it, and you got to make the sacrifices. So I had to make the sacrifices. There was a lot of times I couldn't Uber eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I didn't worry about it because it went to the community and it went to a much needed cause. So
That's right.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
good. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, because a lot of people get a little confused in that area. And, another thing that some people possibly do, the great thing about nonprofits is, even though a lot of times we as the founders, especially if it's an individual founder, we carry it on our back, the dynamic of a nonprofit is supposed to be community. So it starts with that board. So if you can have board members who also, one of the things that, I don't know if you got this question on any of the grant applications you submitted yet, but one of the questions a lot of times they ask is, are the people on your board donating?
Right.
Are you 100%, is every meaning which percentage of your board is donating? They'll say it's 100% donating, because you're absolutely right. They want to number one, know that you're willing to invest in your dream. So I like to say, this is an easy way to put it when it comes to funding that makes sense to everybody. And I break it down like this. Just imagine somebody's asking you for money. You're going to have some questions, right?
Yeah, like what you need it for, why you want it, what you gonna do with it.
Why you want it, what you going to do with it,
Yeah.
what you been doing. You know what I mean?
Show me what's gonna happen once I give it.
Exactly.
I need you to do that. Like you have no idea how successful the program's gonna be, but they want you to tell them how successful the program's gonna be if they actually invest the money. Like you have no idea, but they want to know. It doesn't matter. So
they want to know.
These are things that you have to think about when you're going out there and you're asking them for money. Like, okay, you have all of this together because these are the questions you're gonna get asked. And like Tracy said, when I started mine, as far as board goes, I just threw family members on there. Like I was like, okay, like to start off my board, I was like, well, I'm gonna use myself. I'm gonna use my aunt because she has like, her degree and she's in nursing, and I wanted to do a program that had to do with healthcare and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, that's perfect. My sister-in-law, because I was like, she can handle the money because she's in financial, so I took pieces of my family that I knew could actually fulfill those spots just so I can get it up and running and get my 501c3. And I wouldn't suggest that for anybody because of the simple fact that I did that, but I didn't realize that I was really doing everything on my own. Like I didn't really have a real board. So I had no one to really turn to, you know what I mean? So I bring that up because I wouldn't suggest it. If I could do it again, I would actually get out here and find me board members prior to actually getting my 501c3. So that way, like she said, it would have been better for me financially to have a board that was, conducive to what I was trying to do.
Absolutely.
Because then I would have had help and I wouldn't have had to carry the entire year on my back by myself, until I could actually find other people who were actually interested in what I was interested in. And still, it's a long road to actually finding like a full board that I want. The full board that I want, I'm still like out here grabbing people here and there as I come across them. They're just being placed in my path. But yeah, it's definitely something you got to worry about. Make sure you have your boards
Yes,
before you go
get
into it,
started.
because that is the hardest part. To find someone who has the same vision and dream as you, it's hard. And believe in it as much as you believe in it. Is willing to invest in it as much as you're willing to invest in it. It's a tough road.
It is. It is. And finding, like you said, finding that is so true. Finding people that are as passionate. That's why you want your board members to donate as well. Because
Yeah.
you want to make sure that's why that as well. Another thing that I've been suggesting to nonprofits is to start utilizing a board member invite, whether they're family or not. This is what I
Mhm.
need from you. This is what, this is what is expected. This is what this job title holds or whatnot. What I mean? This how many hours, even how much you may need to donate per year or whatnot. But if they're able to, if they don't want to join because of what you're asking, then that just basically means that they're probably may not have been a good fit for the board because they may not have the time. Sometimes it's not that. Sometimes they just don't have the bandwidth. You know what I mean? They just
Right,
don't. They have
right,
too much going on. They have serious things that they may need to be worried about right now or whatnot. But you
right,
want to find people with that same passion because ultimately your board members are going to be your ambassadors for your program. So
right,
if you haven't sold the vision to them, how can they
right. Like
then
you said,
continue to sell the vision to other people?
right.
And so that's the toughest journey, but it's also
Yeah.
one that's going to that you grow from, that you
Yeah.
really grow and you learn the most from as well. So that was definitely good. Nelson said, congratulations on receiving the grants. Let's talk about those a little bit more as well. Which grants? So tell us which grants were they, and tell us about the process of applying.
Okay, so I applied for Lockheed Martin. I actually got Lockheed Martin. I got $1,000 from Lockheed Martin. That was just a letter. All you had to do was submit a letter, obviously, a proposal and what
Mhm.
you wanted it for and stuff like that. So I got my templates from Tracy. So
Awesome. All right.
definitely check it out. And then the next one I applied for was in Louisiana. They actually, I missed it. I forgot this one because this is more of a product based grant, but I got it. I actually applied for it in New Orleans. They merged with like Google, and they were giving out cameras for spaces, cameras, thermostats, the Google Pixel 4, and
Wow.
one more product they gave out. They were giving it out for free, long as you installed it in your, location, long as you were location based. So I applied for that and I got that. They install the cameras for free. The only request that they have is that you complete a survey, a post survey once it's up and running. So I have
Wow.
cameras all up and through my space, a new thermostat in my space, and a
All
Google
right.
so for
Wow.
free, all for free. And then Walmart. Now I say this because everybody should, with a 501c3, should get on Walmart's website and apply for Walmart grants. Those require no help, no assistance at all. Simple questions, easy application process. You can get up to 25 from 25 different stores. So
Wow.
definitely apply. So what I did was I went all through Louisiana and
Mhm.
applied. And if it was somewhere that was maybe like a little driving distance, I just told them that, hey, like I'll bring it. If you approve me, I'll bring my program to you. Like
Mhm.
I'll bring Colorful Dreams out there and we will do an event. Even if you want us to do it at your Walmart, we'll do an
Mhm.
event. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So those are easy applications. So please don't miss out on those because that's easy funding. I mean, up to $5,000 on each application if you want. So
How long
they
did it
may
take for approval with Walmart?
some of them. So I applied maybe 3.5 weeks ago, and I've received 3 checks from them already. So I was incorrect.
Oh, all right.
Altogether, financial wise, I've received 4 grants and one tangible product grant. But yeah, so I've gotten, and the checks come fast. The minute they approve you, it goes to the corporate office, and the corporate office sends out checks. And that's the fastest mail I've gotten through the pandemic was a check from Walmart. I'm not sure why, but
Wow. Oh my
um,
goodness.
So
That is
like I said,
awesome.
3 weeks
That is
ago, and I've
awesome.
got 3 checks from them. So,
And one thing I
and
want to say is starting small. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like being okay with it. The grant process is a snowball process. So a lot of times, sometimes your vision is really big, which is great. But again,
but
you
you
have
have
to start asking all those questions. Like you said, okay, I got to prove myself to, they want to see the results. They want to see what's going on. So let me start small. Let me start with a small project and just get that momentum going. So I can start creating something for the larger grants and things like that as well.
and that's how I started, because when I first got with Tracy, I was like, I wanted to be like a YMCA. I want this
Mhm.
big space. I had
Mhm.
all these big dreams, like, and I didn't think about like, okay, you got these big dreams, but how you gonna fund a building the size
Mhm.
of YMCA without tangible products? You know what I mean? Or tangible services or
Right. Mhm.
surveys, results, or anything like that. Nobody knows your name, but you want a
Mhm.
YMCA. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I had to, like she said, scale back a little bit. I had to realize, hey, you got to start somewhere. So
Yes.
start somewhere. So I ended up getting a suite, and I was like, hey, I could work out of this suite, and I could bring people in and do what I need to do here, and we can try that. And once we get that up and running, we'll build a reputation, and then that reputation will get us to the level of what I envision for us to be.
Yes.
So
Embracing the journey. That's what it sounds like.
exactly,
You're embracing the journey, that this is a journey. It's not something that, Rome wasn't built in a day. So,
no,
yes, as a visionary, that's great that you have that vision, because that more than likely is something that's going to take place once you get to that part of the journey. But breaking it
yep,
down to where can I start right now? And if you're funding it yourself right now, trying to keep
definitely,
that overhead and that budget in the smaller area. Okay, can I do a virtual program? Can I do a Zoom program? That's no location if I'm doing that program. Or what can I
right,
do this small to make the budget low, so that as my budget grows, that's when the programs will grow as well.
right,
You
and that's
know.
what I had to make sure, like, when I got into a space, that even if a grant didn't come in, even if I didn't get anything from anybody for a while, I could still afford to keep my space, and that wouldn't, waver depending on finances. So yeah, that definitely was a big one.
Absolutely. Robert said, what percentage of your time goes towards running your programs?
The bulk of it, honestly, the bulk of it goes to running your programs, because especially at a time like right now, I mean, I would say out of 100%, about 90% of it goes to the programs, and then maybe the rest goes to like making sure your funding and your board and everybody is situated. But more often than not, you're making sure your programs are sustainable and making sure they're up and running the way that you want them up and running. Because at the end of the day, your funding really comes from, like you said, your board members will help you get funding, but your funding comes from the success of your program.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Yes.
so
Say that one more time.
your funding comes from the success of your program. So you have to spend the bulk of your time working on your programs and shifting your programs, because you may have a vision for it, and then you may realize that, like, hey, like, okay, like, let's use the pandemic for example. You may have a vision for your program, and then you realize there's a pandemic, and that grants grants are only being given out right now because of programs that help COVID relief. So you may need to, okay, I do youth mentorship. Okay, now I'm a shift. Now I'm going to shift it, and I'm going to say I'm going to do youth mentorship, but I'm also going to give out like tablets or stuff that will assist them while they're at home. Or
Yes.
I'm going to bring it to where I have virtual mentors, so that way kids can jump on and get a mentor from home, because they still have a lot to talk about. So that's a big example of the shift. So a lot of your programs are going to shift with the times. Like she said, I mean, especially in what we do as humanitarians who create 501c3s, that's what we do. We have to make sure we reach the community, because that's what we created this for. And
That's
so
what
we
we
have to
created this
shift.
for. That's
Yeah.
it. That's deep, because you have to sometimes check your ego, even as a humanitarian.
Yeah.
Like, who did you create this for? If not the world doesn't need it right now, but if the world is changing right now, you need to change with it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because our goal is to be of greatest impact. So you want
Mm-hmm.
to be able, so if that, if some of the biggest hit things and stuff like that has like kind of been like maybe in some of the fashion industry, because now
Yep.
people can wear their pajama pants and
Yeah.
and people
Yeah.
at home, you know what I mean? So okay, Sounds good. Well, if I still want to be in fashion, what is some, you know what have I been looking up lately? I've been looking up comfortable stuff that also has some style to it. You know what I mean? Super comfy. You may need to switch. Like you said, that pivoting is so important. But most importantly, making sure that impact is on the forefront is most important, and the community
Yep.
is on the forefront. Because you shift easy when it comes to that. When you're like,
Yep.
okay, mentorship is my main thing. If this one isn't hitting, oh, but I just did this on this,
Mhm.
just doing it over here for a couple minutes. But man, they really got it. How can I
Yep.
bring that into what I'm working on right now? Oh, she's really getting this because she's getting the mentorship time a couple of times a month as opposed to this many times or whatnot. How can I do
Mhm.
that? Maybe I need to do a group program where we're there instead of doing individual so I can show up more for them. You know what I mean? So adjusting with your community in mind, and also in a way that you can also succeed and be at peace and not be running yourself ragged as well, but having that community first. So that's
Yeah.
so important. That's so
And
important.
the important piece that you said is definitely, this is extremely important. Checking your ego. Because a lot of things are not gonna go the way that you envisioned them or dreamed they would, and you may have to. You're gonna take some L's along the
Yeah.
way, so that's why pride and ego can't exist in a humanitarian world. Like when we're doing what we're doing, pride and ego can't exist. You have to. You can have that on everything else, but you definitely cannot have that in this right here, because you're gonna take a lot of losses. Like I can't even begin to tell you how many volunteers came in and were hyped up, and then the pandemic started to shift, or life started to shift, and the dedication that they said they were going to have, they didn't have. So you end up having a shuffle because now you got to find new volunteers, and uh, it's so many different experiences that you come across. So definitely, ego and pride is definitely something you have to let go. And like I said, like I mean, when applying with Walmart, I was like, yo, like I don't care how far you are, you could be 3 hours away. If you're gonna give me the funding, I'll bring a program to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's a short drive in comparison to bringing something to the community. So if you're gonna give me the money to bring it to your community, I'm gonna bring it to your community. Period. Like,
Absolutely.
and that's what it's about.
Willing to go that extra step, willing to
Yeah.
like think outside the box, like, okay, you know what, if it's not in my community, I'll bring it over here to this community. And when you
Right.
set that tone as a leader, you start to attract people around you with that same go-getter personality, with those same type of attributes and things like that. And that's so important what you said about taking L's, because some
Yeah.
people just don't know how to take an L. They're like, look,
And you gonna learn.
you
I'm
better
telling you,
learn.
you're
Exactly, you
gonna
better
learn.
learn.
You'll learn nothing else. That's one thing you will learn is L's are gonna come, but it's okay. Like it's okay. Just keep going. Just keep going. Everybody's not gonna see your vision the way you see your vision, and everybody's not gonna believe in it the way you believe in it, and that's okay. Just
Mhm.
keep going till you find a person who does.
That's it. And they will, and eventually you will start to find those people. A lot of times we spend a
Yep.
lot of time sometimes trying to kind of convince the ones
Mhm.
that are right around us, or the ones that are in our circle, or the ones that, you try to kind of convince them to be that person. You should be
Yeah.
passionate about this. But in all actuality,
Right.
there's a lot of people out here, like you said, that already have that natural passion. They're already, but you just have to connect with them. Well, how are you going to connect with them? You got to move. If you're not
Right.
moving, if you're not taking those steps, if you're not, that's how you're able to connect. You're here. You know what I mean? Someone could be
Mhm.
watching and say, hey, you know what? I want to connect. Oh, where's she located? Okay, you know what? She
Right.
has some of the same vision that I have. You know what I mean? And if you are, message her. We'll make sure we include those links and things like that below as well, guys. So that's so important. That is so important to be
Yeah,
able to take those
I come
L's.
across people in the most random places. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the simplest way I can say it is energy. Energy attracts energy,
That's
and so
it.
that's probably the simplest way I can say it, because I've met people in the weirdest places. I just met a lady the other day in the bank. I went in a bank for just a letter, and she just happened to help me because I was just standing there idling. She just happened to help me. She asked me what we did. I explained to her what we did, and she was like, oh, well, I wanted to create a nonprofit, but I got discouraged because, of the pandemic and everything just wasn't going right. She was like, so I definitely will be willing to bring my program to your program. I'm like, oh, okay, let's Let's go.
Wow,
So
why not? That's what I'm talking about. And when you're really dealing with some humanitarians, you start creating those win-wins. Like, okay, wait a minute. She has some momentum going in this area. This is her program that she's doing. You know what? Let me combine with her. Let's put these together. Or maybe she's working in youth in this type of certain, specifically talking about, I know that you're working with youth in general, but you may be working with youth just for foster, and I'm working with youth for teen parents. Oh, you know
yeah,
what?
she was a financial program. She was like, she was like, I'm just trying to bring she worked at the bank. She was like, I'm just trying to bring a financial program. She was like, because you wouldn't believe how many teenagers come in here and can't balance a checkbook, or how many, of our youth come in here and they don't understand how a bank account works, or this, that, and the third. She was like, so I just want to bring a financial program. So I was like, oh, let's go. Like, I got a space. We could get in that space. And she was like, I know this person and I know that person. I was like, yo, the only way we're going to win is if we do it together. So let's go. Like, let's put them together and let's go.
And that's two passionate people that are both putting in that passion, because that's something that you can't teach, and sometimes you can't even pay for with paid staff for that passion, and somebody that just care. You know what I mean? And care about, because again, if you put the community at the forefront, you're not, again, this is not ego. This is my goal and mission is the youth. I believe, which I'm assuming as you as a youth mentor, I believe that youth are our future. That if you learn it young, you have that fresh mind. Honestly, the people that's one thing that we've been adding to our team is adding more youth and more younger interns and partners and employees and contractors and things like that. And they've been coming with their own fresh energy. They're more willing. They're listening.
They're so far ahead of us, man.
So far ahead of us.
So far ahead of us. It's crazy, man. Like for me to try to keep up with, like, especially being a youth program, to try to keep up with them, I'm moving all the time, because I'm like, I can't keep up with as fast as their brains move. Their brains move fast, and technology is key for them, and they never get enough of learning. So it's like some of them sometimes can work me under the table. You know, like literally.
That's good. And that's good for you to be. You see where your ego is at when you say that. You said they're far ahead of us. You know what I mean? We willing to say, you know what? Y'all are far away. Even the
tell
little
me what you thinking.
Like, absolutely. They're just
tell me what you're thinking so I can make sure that my programs reach you. Like I can't, like I don't need no ego. Tell me what you're thinking so I can make sure I'm giving you that. You know what I mean? Because I'm here for you. So I need to know where your mind is so I can make sure mine almost aligns, because you guys are light years ahead of us. So I just try to keep up. I try to stay right behind you at least. You know what I mean? Because you're ahead of me, but I try to stay right behind you at least.
But they're here to bring something to us. And when you can have, when they can start having people in their lives that are actually willing to and can see their genius and see that, you know what, you far ahead. Let me now create that community piece and create that family and create maybe something that maybe some people didn't have. Be able to say, yep, you got this. Oh, okay, you got all these ideas. You just need a computer. Okay, I can work on that with you. I got that. You got this piece. And what'll happen is your youth will start funding your nonprofit as well, because now you're setting them up for success, which is great. Allison asked about the Walmart link. I'll make sure I add that, Allison. December 31st was the deadline for Walmart. Then they reopen back up in February. So no worries. They reopen back up, and then they go all year, all the way to December 31st as well. Camilla said, good thing I'm still creating my business plan. It gives time to think outside the box and process without having to change anything of our mentor program. We can just get with the times. Good. That is good to definitely still be creating a business plan as well. How much time have you put together like a solid business plan / nonprofit master proposal for your program?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I did, but to be honest, it wasn't enough. I mean, because again, like I said, with everything consistently changing, a business plan is good to get you started, but most grants, they don't even really care about the business plan. They care more about the financial aspects of how you intend to run your business versus business plan. So I've started shifting, and honestly, that's more of my focus now. The business plan was just there, I guess, for me, because most grants, they don't care about a business plan. They want to know how you plan to use my money. Like if I give you $1,000, like what you gonna do with that $1,000? Like,
Yeah.
and most of them will say like, I don't give grants for, like for running, like I don't give grants to run your business. Like I give grants for programs. So that's the difference in a lot of grants. They're not gonna give you funding to pay for the building or to pay for this. You have their specific grants for those, and then there's specific grants for programs. And more often than not, you'll find grants for programs before you find grants for you know running the day-to-day operations. So
Because they want those programs to come first. You're absolutely right.
yeah,
For starter organizations, it's going to be easier to get that pros programs funded, which is why sometimes I'm like, just figure out what your budget is for that one individual program. You don't have to
yeah,
do
and
a
you
whole
have to do that.
year budget
Yep,
and this
I
whole
had to
list.
do
Go ahead.
I had to do that. I had to do a budget for each program that we provide. I had to do a budget for, and all of them were different because every program is not going to run off the same amount of money.
That's it.
Like one program, you may have to provide laptops for the kids to come in, or you may have to provide laptops for them to be able to do certain things from home, or you may need to provide books, or what I'm saying, things of that nature. Like there may be something different in each program. So you definitely have to build financials for each program that you intend to provide. Because when you're applying for grants for those programs, they're not gonna say, let me see your business plan. They're gonna say, let me see your financials.
That's it.
Let me see your financials. Let me see what your financials look like last year. Let me see that. Let me know who your board is, basically, so I can see if they're decent people. You know what I mean? Like that.
Right.
Those are the things that they care about. Like, okay, what's the stature of your board? Like, is your board just a bunch of people who have know nothing behind their names, or or are they actually people who
Can
are going
contribute.
to use
Mm-hmm.
can contribute. So I've learned, like she said, in adjusting, I've had to switch that up. I've had to like find me a person with a doctorate degree because that's respect. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They give that respect. I will not tell anybody any different. You definitely want somebody with some degrees and some initials behind their name or in front of their name.
You want to have
PhD, doctor.
that
Yeah, yeah.
diversity of board.
Of
Sometimes there is
course, of
somebody
course.
who just their name on the board in itself
Yeah,
is enough to add a lot to and that's fine. Maybe they won't be an
yeah.
active member, but you know what? They're contributing because their name
Right.
on the board adds to it in itself as well. So you
Right,
are
and that's what I
absolutely
had to
right.
do. Collaboration is key.
Mhm.
Collaboration is key. Collaboration is key. Because I had to get with some guy. I had to get with some other people who were like, okay, you got your doctorate. Look, yeah, you ain't got. I ain't gonna force you to do, rock your hand, but I need to at least have you in on something. I need to put you on my board or something because I need your stature to be able to make sure they understand. Like I could do this. You know what I'm saying? And if I can, I got a mentor or help behind me who's gonna pick me up and make sure I can do this.
That I can do it. That I can at least ask a question to advisory
Yeah,
board. A lot of times you'll have an advisory board as well. So that's so
yeah.
important. Another thing you touched on is you touched on that some of the grants, the smaller grants and the newer grants, they're going to be funding for the programs. It's not going to come
Mhm.
straight in for for the running of the building and stuff. And that's where we get into products and services, guys. And we're not going to talk too much about it, but when you have something of value, a lot of times you can create that as a product and or a service for some people who can pay for it. So for an
Right.
example, with our nonprofits, people pay to get their nonprofits set up. We also set up many nonprofits pro bono as well for individuals coming out of domestic violence situations, for youth. Whenever we come across a youth who wants to start a nonprofit or something of that nature, we're able to set those up and not charge them because of the individuals who are able to pay. So if you have a program that can translate to both worlds where there are, or you can also create sliding scales, you can also create sponsorships. That's really a big piece
Yeah.
in youth. A lot of people are willing to
Mhm.
sponsor youth. So that's a great
Yeah.
thing for nonprofits and for mentorship as well. But creating something where you're creating and generating your own revenue is not only going to be great because there's no limits of what you could do with those funds. So you can do staff, you can do your building and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But also, it's great for getting more grants because they want to know. Another question is, well, tell me where all you're getting funds coming in from. Do you have businesses that support you and sponsor you as well?
Right.
Do you have prop programs and services? They want you. Do you have board members that are also donating? When they see all of that, then they're more apt to fund as well. Let me see here. Oh yeah, Camilla said congratulations, and yes, congratulations. A lot of people are saying congratulations on your grant, which is awesome. Valerie asked another question. How far in advance should I apply for grants prior to opening your business? That's an interesting question, Valerie. Because you're technically, before you can apply, you've already opened your business or nonprofit, or your nonprofit. That's what we really specialize in over here. So you've already set it up, because they're going to want to see your 501c3. They're going to want to see that you're open before then. So you typically don't start actually applying for the funding until a couple of months after you've gotten started, which is why it's so important. I think she was the same one that asked about that beginning funding, which is why it's so important to embrace some of the crowdfunding funding. Get used to asking, even if it's just, here's a great way to kind of get your feet wet in the funding area. Ask somebody for funding. Just tell them, hey, I'm going to request some funding from you, just as a mock funding request. Say, I'm going to just don't actually give me funding. This is just a mock. Give me some feedback on my request, why you would or wouldn't fund me if this was something that was a valid, and preferably somebody outside of your circle. So they can give you that good, unbiased reason as to why they would fund you or they wouldn't fund you. But you don't start off right with grants as your main source of income. Am I right with that?
No, it all came out of pocket. Like I said, it all definitely came out of my pocket. And a big piece in that is, like she said, I mean, most websites, when you go to apply for grants, they can pull you up straight out of the IRS database. So they don't even, some will ask for your D-term letter, but some don't need it because they have access to the IRS database, which can show them that you're an actual 501c3 in active standing. So a lot of them will ask for that when you're applying for grants. So most of them, if you don't have that information, you won't even make it through the application process because they require that to be attached. So like, some of them will pull you straight out of the database. All you got to do is put in your EIN. And then some of them will say, well, attach attach a screenshot of your local, your local website that shows you're active in your state. And then, also submit your D-term letter and IRS paperwork or whatever. So a lot of them won't even let you make it through the process without even submitting that paperwork, because they want to know, like, hey, I need to know that you already put in the work. Like, I need to know that basically, to be honest, they want to know that you're tax deductible. Period. They want to know that.
That's a win-win for them. That's a win-win for them.
That's why it's so. And I want to make sure I let you know, like, it's not because it's because they want to make sure that when I give out this $1,000, I can write that off on my taxes, even though I'm a $1 million bill. Business. I want to make sure that when I give you money, I can write that off on my taxes, because that's why I'm giving it. To be honest. And so that's why it's so important that you have that paperwork.
That you have that foundation. And like you said, it shows skin in the game. If you just come again, pretend you're asking. The easiest way to do this is ask yourself for money and pretend somebody else is asking for that. You know what I mean? If someone was asking you for money and you were like, okay, but you don't have your business set up yet. Okay. Have you tested any of these things yet? Okay. Who are you mentoring? Start mentoring somebody. It's a youth around you.
Right.
You have a mentorship.
What's the benefit in it for me? Always ask yourself. With them. You know what I'm saying? What's in it for me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Camilla said, yes, no, God always bring the right people. Yes. And she was talking about when we were talking about board, that he'll bring those people to you. And energetically, we talked about energy some here, Kendra, as well. And energetically, when you start to contribute, you energetically attract people that are wanting to grow with that too. They see what you're doing. Some people are not visionaries. Some people don't want to lead the charge. They're like, oh, girl, oh, you want to lead that? Okay, let's go. You know what I mean? I can be a support. I can do that, but I don't want to lead the charge. You know what I mean? So, but they want to see things first. They want to see that movement. So God automatically starts placing those people around you when you start taking those first initial steps. But you have to take those initial steps. You can't have a vision with absolutely no steps and expect people to want to immediately start giving to that. You know what I mean? They want to see that Even in
You're
family.
passionate about it. Like, I need to make sure, like, if you want me to come with you, I need to make sure you somebody I can follow. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Or
yes,
somebody I can rock with, you know? Like, and that's what
absolutely.
they need to see. And it's crazy that she says that because, like I told you guys, I took a lot of L's in between. But as she says that, I think about it. As she says that, I think about it. Like, I took a lot of L's because during that time, I was shaky about where I stood. I
Hmm.
was shaky about where we stood because I wasn't getting funded and everything was on my back and it became more stress than it did, a help or assistance for the community because I'm trying to figure out where next month's rent is going to come from. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't think about this when I started it. So it's funny that she says that because that same energy is what I received in volunteers, like people who
Hmm.
you were on board today and then tomorrow something else was more important to you. But that's the energy I was given. And then the
Yes.
minute I said, no, I'm not going to do this. You created this for a reason. You invested. Now make it happen. I started attracting those same people who were like, man, that's powerful. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like, let's do this because I don't want to give up. We could push each other. Like, I gave up for a minute. Now I'm back. Let's go. We could push each other. So it's
I
very
love it.
important that
That
your
is
energy
so
stays
important.
high.
Deep. That is so deep. And that is like that. If nothing else that you guys take from this, take that from it, that it was within you. Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times we are looking around us and okay, it's because of this, because I'm not in this situation, or I don't have this, or I don't have deep pockets, or I don't have all the things you don't have. But what do you have, and how can you give that your all? You got your energy, you got your time, you got your, if you woke up, you breathe, and you know what, am I giving it my all? I'm trying to attract people that's giving their all, but am I? Those are deep questions that you got to ask yourself. That's hard to come to. Sometimes it's hard to think
Yeah.
about those things. That's where that ego.
Yeah.
That's where you put your
Yep.
ego down. Like, well, what am I doing? Well, what am I? How can I adjust? That's huge. That's huge.
Yep.
And when you get to that point, you see where the real problem is, and you realize that all the power is right there within you.
Yep.
Now
Long
it's
as
like,
you don't give
okay,
up, long as you don't give up, your stuff will continue to push. Don't give up.
that's it. Right.
Believe in what you're doing all the way across the board at all times.
Just keep on going, just putting that
Yep.
one foot in front of the other. And when you're having those times where your energy is low and things like that, and when you're really, like being okay with shifting, like, how can I shift this? Okay, what can I do tomorrow? What's that baby step? What's that one action step? Yeah, Camilla is loving it. She said exactly. That's the only way it all works, when we come together. Absolutely, absolutely. How do you know how much you need? Now that's when we talk about the budgeting and things like that. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So basically, I knew how much I needed because I sat down and, like, if I had a program, so let's use, for example, like I had this one, I'll tell you guys, nobody else knows. I'll bring it out here. One of the biggest things I wanted to create when I created Colorful Dreams before I did anything else was I wanted to create an app. I wanted to bring an app because I know that nowadays our youth, cell phones is their world. Technology is everything to them. So in order for me to make sure we reached the youth, I wanted to make sure we created a app. And that app, inside of that app, we have like certain where you can jump into chat rooms with different topics. So if you're a science geek, you could jump in a science chat room and talk to other kids who enjoy science and so on and so forth. And as well as, like, I have a section where we incorporated some games so that they can just play some games while they're in there, and that it's not just seriousness. It's fun as well. And then we have another section where they can jump in and do mental health as well. So they can there are going to be therapists and people that they can talk to who are actually licensed, and they can jump in and talk to them. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously for something like that, you may not get all of your therapists for free. The programming, you want to try to find them, but your programming may need somebody, you may have to end up paying a service or something like that. So you go through and you grab the cost of different services that provide what you're looking for and what you intend to provide with this program. Because I look at the app as a program because it has to stand on its own.
Yeah.
Like it has to stand on its own. So that's an entire program in itself for me.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost of maintaining that program to keep it up, you know what I'm saying? Because you're going to have somebody check that app, often to make sure it meets compliance with the Google App Store or,
Mm-hmm.
the iOS App Store. So I use that one as an example. So all of those things, you just sit down and you have to just build, look for different quotes. And that's with any program. If you're talking about, you're going to create the financial program, you may find a financial program that exists for you. Like I'll use Dave Ramsey, for example. I mean, just because that's one I could think of off the top of my head. He may already have a program that is set up for you. So you may not want to rebuild too much. You may want to just use something that already exists because the easier the better. And so you may need to buy those products. So you think, okay, I want to buy books for maybe, 50, 60 kids. What's the cost of that? So then you have to say, this is the cost of that inside of, your budget. So that's why I say each program is going to have a different budget because you're going to need different things to run each program. So I'll need certain things to run my app, but then I'll need something entirely different to run my financial program. And so I'll need books. I'll need, you may want to provide the computer. So when they come in here, you may want to provide calculators. You may want to provide all of these different things that they're going to need to be able to sit in here because you know that, especially when you're working, like my program is strictly geared towards, for the most part, strictly geared towards disadvantaged youth. So because they're disadvantaged, we know that when they walk through these doors, they're going to walk through these doors and they're not going to have much of anything themselves because they're disadvantaged. So then I know that I have to calculate every single thing and make sure that they can walk into if I want to be a full nonprofit and don't want to take anything out of their pocket, I have to make sure that they can walk into my doors and get everything from me and feel confident in coming through my doors and not feeling wavy in front of their friends or, less than in front of whoever else is in here because one kid comes with a calculator and then the other kid doesn't have it. One kid comes with a cell phone and the other kid doesn't have it. I need to make sure that every kid can come into my doors and sit next to each other and have all of the same resources. So that is extremely important. But the bigger piece to that is you want to make sure you find the least expensive of those options because finances, when it comes to grants, they want to make sure that that you can do a lot with less, if that makes sense. So they want to make sure that, example, if I give you $1,000, you could stretch that $1,000, and in that $1,000, you could help 60 kids. Versus 10 kids. You know what I mean? They want to make sure that's the biggest thing. They want to make sure that you can do a lot with a little, because then they trust you with their money. So you always want to make sure that, you get what you need, but you want to make sure you get what you need at a decent cost. So that may require you to put in the work to reach out to companies and say, hey, are you willing to donate XYZ? I'm a nonprofit and I want to provide this. And are you willing to donate maybe a laptop or two? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of websites out there where you can get a lot of this stuff that we're talking about. And if Tracy lets me, I'll give you a couple websites at the end or whenever she gets ready, where you can apply as a 501c3. And what they do is they sell bulk items. And so whereas in you would buy, let's say I do school drives. So doing school drives, I may need 30 I want to buy 30 backpacks. Now, if you buy 30 backpacks off of Amazon, you may buy 30 backpacks off of Amazon and spend $300. Let's be honest. But then you can go to another website as a 501c3 and get 30 backpacks for $40, $50. Different, major difference. So you have it requires a lot of research, a lot of long nights, because you have to find where you get your deals as a nonprofit, and tell these people, hey, you could give me whatever you want to give me. I'm asking you for $5,000, but if you give me $1,000, I can make that $1,000 work, because at the end of the day, I just want to provide to the community. So I can make 5,000 work. I want 5,000, but if you don't feel comfortable giving me that, give me this $1,000 and I'm gonna make things shake with this $1,000.
Yeah, that's good. And you know what that sounds like? I'm gonna go back to it and pin back on it one more time. That sounds like what I would want somebody to be doing with my money if they were running if I gave them some money. I would want them to be maximizing it. I would want them to be good stewards. I would want them to, I would want them to be putting community over aesthetics necessarily and
Yeah,
just looking like, putting that community first. That's very
yeah,
important. Like, so the thing is, one thing that Coach Austin says often is numbers are just numbers. So having the numbers, sometimes people are scared to get the numbers. Like, I know I ain't gonna have this, or I know I'm, scared to do that research. But
yeah.
having
Now you
those
got
numbers, you can't be scared. You got to have the numbers so you
yeah,
can start there and adjust. You may have versions of your budget. You may say, listen, as soon as everything opening back up and we do this physically, this is how much it's going to cost. The virtual version of it costs this much. If that's what I got, I'll do the virtual version. This
right.
version over here, costs this much or whatnot. So once you're able to see those numbers, you're able to think of different ways to be able to cut them, to be, again, it may not be financial. You may not need, once you know what you need the funds for, you can then start to say, oh, okay, is there someone who can donate these services? Maybe there is someone
Hmm.
who can donate it. Maybe there's someone who gets paid. There's a lot of people who have jobs where they'll actually pay them to volunteer for nonprofits. They do
Yeah,
matching programs like that where they'll match those hours or whatnot. And so,
yeah.
so there's all types of options once you really are looking at what the real numbers are. So just doing that work of finding out, okay, what do I want to do? How much is this going to cost? And how much is it going to cost if I get volunteers? How much of it going to cost if I don't get volunteers? Maybe I won't. So let me know
Right.
how much that will cost as well, and go from there.
And
So
we go back to ego and pride one more time, because ego and pride, you have to go into locations. You can't be afraid. Banks, like let's use a bank for example. Banks require their workers to volunteer somewhere. So ego and pride comes into play because you can't be afraid or ashamed to walk into a bank and say, "Hey, I know you guys have to volunteer. Would you guys be willing to volunteer at an event I plan to put on, or would you guys be willing to do X, Y, Z?" Don't fear that, because at the end of the day, they have to give volunteer hours. It's a requirement for them. They make them do it. So you have to be mindful of things like that. Grocery stores, they give out, they may not give you cash, but they'll give you a gift card. And that gift card could be beneficial because you can go in and get some things for an event. Like you may want to go in and grab food because you want to do an event. And then that's one less thing out of your nonprofit pocket. So don't always think that you have to have like financial tangible funds, because there are other ways, like she said, to get funding. You know what I mean? And there are other things that can be funded, but that's where, and it's been a trend this whole conversation, but that's where ego and pride definitely has to be put to the side, because you have to be willing to ask the question, the tough question, because you're asking someone for money, and most of us, we hate to do that because we like to look independent. But that, it doesn't matter. It's not about us. It's not about what we look like. It's about what Colorful Dreams needs. You know what I'm saying? So
That's it. It's about the mission. And that's what nonprofits are all about, is putting the mission over everything. So it's like, this is not for me. This is so that I can provide something to an area of the community that I feel like I can grow. And because of
right.
that, I'll ask you, yeah, I'm trying to help. This is why I'm helping the youth, so it's okay for me to ask about it. It's okay for me to talk about it. And we have to get more comfortable talking about our passions and what we're doing, especially as humanitarians, because this is
Yeah.
something that's helping the community in whole. So talking about it, that's the only way you're going to start to attract the energy, is making those moves. Sometimes the move is just talking about it. Sometimes the move is going on live on your page, or or starting to
Yeah.
interview your board, or just getting yourself out there and getting that, starting to make those, because you never know what's going to happen. A lot of times people look at these large metrics of some of these large organizations, large businesses, and see all these views or all these, they don't realize that a small nonprofit who just started, even if they have 5 views on something, one of those views could have been from the right person in the right foundation, in the right, you never know
Right.
one
Right.
little step where it's going to take you. And one thing I've seen with your energy through this whole time is appreciation of every little thing. Appreciation of a gift card, appreciation of a, no matter what the grant, appreciation
Hmm.
of a, an item that's not the grant. There's a lot
Yeah.
of people think, no, I need grant funds. I need only cash, only grants that's actually.
Nah.
Well, what are you going to use the money for? That's when it goes back to that.
Right.
Well, why is it that you wouldn't take those items as opposed to the funds, if that's what you need the
Yeah.
money
I
for?
mean, pivot. Like
Yeah,
we said, pivot. Pivot.
We've been
pivot.
all
Like,
doing a pivoted dance. We've been pivoting the crap out of
right.
2020. Like,
Hey,
you know what?
pivot. Hey, okay, you don't want to give me, cash? I'll take whatever you give me because I
Okay.
will make that work. I
Absolutely.
will make that work,
And when they see that energy and when they see that drive and when they see that appreciation, that's when more follows and more follows. And I don't think it's a happenstance or a mistake that you got 3 grants back to back like that, because
Yeah.
it's an energetic thing, so that is absolutely, take that. If you don't take anything else from this, take that your energy matters and what you put into it matters, and it's your energy that makes it grow, pivoting when you need to pivot,
Yeah.
and then appreciation of everything that you're getting in,
Yeah.
appreciation of every single thing. Let's see if we have any other questions or comments here that we can get to before we let you all go. We came into this New Year's 2021 strong at an hour and 10
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I mean,
what I tell you, Kendra, when I came on here, I was like, I'm gonna be about 15 to 20 minutes to 20
you
minutes,
did.
maybe 45, but you know what? Hey, it's helping. We're gonna just keep on going with it and end with these questions here. Candy, our payroll specialist, just said, hey ladies, energy is so important. Absolutely.
Yeah.
She joined us at Midget One Payroll. Guys, if you have any questions on payroll, make sure you reach out to her. Sometimes that's a tricky area. But one thing we're going to be talking about in another video is the SBA funding and the new SBA funding that's coming out, guys. But a lot of that SBA funding can be forgiven if you're using it for payroll. And a lot of nonprofits haven't set up their payroll yet. So those are some things. Again, it's just questions that have to be asked. And if you ask those questions, there's a path and how you get there. Sometimes we overthink it. Like, oh, what does that mean? I don't know how to set up payroll. How do I fund the payroll? But sometimes it's just about taking those steps. So thank you. She said,
a question from Asil Love.
uh-huh.
How much will companies do at the beginning of the year versus the end of the year with grants?
How much will companies? That's kind of a loaded question there, Asil. Oh no, this is yeah. And what can I accomplish?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are 2 questions there. So the first one was, how much will companies do at the beginning of the year versus the end of the year? That's loaded because it depends a lot about the organization, right? And what you're doing and what programs you have in place. Would you agree?
And not every company. So when we look at it, as we say, beginning of the year, we look at it as January. A lot of companies don't look at it like that. More often than not, companies will go fiscal year. So when you say fiscal year, they may run from October to October, or they may run from December to December. So it just depends on a company. So it's really not a direct answer to that. I mean, because funding is funding, and funding they could have rolling funding, which means that they never stop looking at applications. They consistently go. Or they could be like, okay, this is the drop. Like she said, Walmart had the drop dead December, and then we'll open it up again in February. So if you didn't get it in then, you definitely could get it in February, which means that that's probably when their funding begins again. They probably cut off in December so they can do all the tax deductions they need to do in January, and then reopen again in February. When they completed all of their tax deductions and got all of that out of the way, now we just start again for deducting taxes for the next year, if that makes sense. So
absolutely.
You got to think about it kind of in that retrospect or perspective. You got to look at it from that viewpoint, because not everyone is going to be beginning of the year and end of the year type things. I mean, funding is funding. It's allocated in their budget. Like we keep saying, we have to have a budget. It's allocated in their budget. So it could not be a beginning of the year. It could be, once my funds are exhausted, and I just stop. I'll give out fast when I open applications because I got it. I got the money and it's fresh. And then a month and a half in, they could run out of funding, so it's really based on allocation, to be honest with you. So you'll never be able to pinpoint when they're going to give it out. It's like how
types of grants. It's so many different types of grants too. So, and areas. It depends on the area.
Right.
If you're school based, if your programs run with the school, well, their year is September in a lot of states to June or whatnot, and so they run like that, and they prep for all those programs a couple of months before September. So it runs differently. I will say that December is a large month for giving as far as non-grant related private donors. A lot of private donors again, even in their budgets, are like, okay, it's the holiday. I'm going to give to this. And a lot of times at the end of the year as well, a lot of people want to be able to write off those donations for the beginning of the year too. So as far as those are concerned, it's a heavy time for that type of giving during December. But there's a lot of people with the fresh new year, as far as personal donations, who part of their New Year's resolutions or goals or rituals is they want to start giving to more nonprofits. So I think most importantly is realizing that there are people, there are foundations, and there are businesses that it is in their budget to give to nonprofits. So how can your nonprofit be part of that? Like you said, you go into the bank. That was good. You're doing that footwork. Call up to the bank, go into the bank, whatever the case may be. How do I get on that list? Because there's already a list. There's already people that are giving to nonprofit organizations. So how can you make your nonprofit a part of that?
You literally can walk into any store and say, "Can I see the manager of that store?" and explain who you are and what you're trying to do, and see if there's anything that they can do for you. Hey, we're willing to take a gift card. We're willing to take XYZ, because ultimately, and more often than not, in like stores and stuff like that, the managers make the decision. Like even with Walmart, the local stores, the store manager will make the decision on whether or not you get the grant. And so they make the decision. If they say yes, then it goes to corporate, and corporate sends you a check. If they say no, then it's a done deal. So I mean, it's nothing. And maybe in some of those stores, if it's taking too long to get your application reviewed, I have a friend and he's like, I'm sending me, my wife, and one of my friends, and we're going in these stores that haven't reviewed my application, and we're asking for the store manager because I want to talk to him, because maybe they need to see me in person to know that I'm serious, because they're just. So keep that stuff in mind. It's okay to walk in the store. Like, it's nothing wrong with pushing if you need it. You know what I mean? Or if you applied and they're taking too long to respond, go in the store, ask for the store manager, and hey, I applied for a grant. I was just trying to introduce myself, and see if there was anything else you needed for me to review it, and go from there.
That doesn't hurt. Absolutely. People fund people. That's a huge quote that I heard a while ago that I'll never stop saying. People fund people. They see a foundation or organization, they want to know the people behind it. So if you if they're like, oh, okay, and then they'll remember a person over an organization. Oh, that's Kendra from Colorful. Okay, I remember her because she came in and they'll remember that story more than sometimes they'll remember just a letter or just your website or whatever the case may be. You have to let them know who are the people behind this. So then that's where they form those ties. So that is definitely an important piece.
And always, if you can, try to brand yourself. So like if you see me, and I use this as an example, if you see me, I have on my hat and I have on my shirt. The reason I have on my hat and my shirt is because people remember logos. Like, and so when I go out, like I can't tell you how many people I've come across, and I'm really not as big as it may seem like just yet, but I will be this year. But I'm not as big as I seem. But when people like say, what did you do? I'm like, I run a nonprofit, because I don't even sell my marketing company or any of that stuff anymore, because I want you to know me for this. So I wear this everywhere I go. People are like, dang, like you don't ever wear anything else. No, because you're gonna remember, and you're gonna remember this. You may not remember my face, but you'll remember the name. You'll remember the bright logo. And so you may hear Colorful Dreams, you be like, dang, I heard that from somewhere. You're going to remember. Yep. So if you can, like, I know people, you know what I mean? Especially nowadays when we can't wear anything. We don't really wear clothes anyway, because we're not really going places.
So but if you're online, let me tell you something, Kendra. Of all the nonprofits that come on, I've probably had maybe 10% wear their logos when they come on.
Yeah.
If you're coming on, if you're about to be on, this is you going out. You know what I mean? And
I want you to remember me. Remember me, because hey, I don't know. You may be bigger than me one day, and I may have to ask you for funds. Who knows? You're gonna remember. Hey, that one on day. Yeah.
That is 100% true. She had a piggyback question on there. Let me see. What was that piggyback, Gayla? Question? Cecile.
What can I accomplish? Was it that one? Yeah.
Be accomplished while she's waiting for approval.
Oh my goodness. What can you accomplish? I'll take that one. Is preparation. So, like Kendra was saying here, we have to they're going to be asking for your financials. They're going to be asking how you're going to be spending these funds. Maybe a website if you don't already have your website, your social media, starting to share your journey, show and tell, guys. That's hard sometimes for humanitarians because they're doing it from their heart. So they're like, I don't want to take pictures. I don't want to, but guess what? If somebody's asking you for money, they want to see what's been going on. Where do they find that out? They find it out on social media. So if you're saying, if you're doing these different, whatever you're doing, trying to find a way to document that. So starting to work on being prepared. So the only thing that they're going to be needing is the 501c3 status, having your bank account open, having all of your things prepared to be able to say, okay, once this 501c3 status comes, that's the last thing that I need. Everything else is done. So I would say, would you add anything to that?
No, exactly what you said. And just be prepared to, like she said, really and truly be ready to share. That's the biggest key or biggest takeaway I will take from it is because, like she said, she told me the exact same thing. You need to do lives, Kendra. You need to get on there. Everybody needs to see you. And I was like, okay. And I never did it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. My nonprofit has been standing for a year, and Tracy was literally the first person that could get me on the live. So if you guys are concerned or afraid, this is my first ever live with a live interview, anything. I had a guy who he put me in front of some really big people, and all he wanted me to do was get on his YouTube, and I just could not bear it. I would shut him down every step I got. He would put me on his calendar, and I would be like, yeah, I'm coming. And then I'd be like, oh, I got it. I got something to do. And I would just not get on because of fear. You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy because when Tracy asked me, I said, let's go. Let's go. Like I was ready to go. And so she was the one I needed to get me up here to get out of my own head, because that's what we do. To get out of my own head and know that it's okay to get up here. And you might stutter, you might make a mistake, you might look a little weird, you might do something crazy with your eyes a time or two, but it's okay. Like at the end of the day, you're doing it, and that's all that matters. And people are not going to remember you for that. They're going to remember you for the stuff you talked about, or like I said, the branding material you come with. They're going to remember you, and especially if you're sharing your story and you're being genuine in it. So that's another big thing I would just say. Like she said, share your journey, man. Because you're not the only person going through it. We all are. We're doing it together. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. We're all here fighting the same battle. So
that's how you attract your tribe. That's how you attract people who can help. I wouldn't even know this was your first live though, Kendra. You are rocking it. See, it's just like rocking in general, So interview your board members on live. You know what I mean? Just do some things to try to, like you said, share. You never know who you can touch. You never know who's watching. The crazy thing is I can remember these times, unfortunately, when internet wasn't here, when we didn't have Facebook, when we didn't have all those things. And if you had a business idea, if you had something, you had to get physical people together. You had to print some flyers. You don't even have to do all of that right now. Everything is literally at the push of a button. You know what?
Yeah.
Hey, I just started my nonprofit. I just got my 501c3. I took the first step. Here's my mission statement. Tell me what you think.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's it. Yep. Just simple little things just to start getting you in the habit of talking about what you're doing, because you're eventually going to have to talk about it. So
you gotta get used to it. I think we got one from Nelson that we jumped past.
There we go, right there. How do companies or donators view nonprofit salaries? This is a good question here too, because like you said, at the beginning stage, we're talking about programs. They're not thinking about salaries until you have a lot of things that you've already accomplished, and they can say, okay, they're doing all these things for the community. Now we can start factoring in those salaries. But at the beginning, you're proving yourself. And that's what you mentioned a little bit earlier, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's salaries, like she said, should come later in the game when you're actual established and you have all of these ratings, all of these reviews, all of these surveys, and everybody knows your name. Then you worry about salary. But in the beginning, I would say the first maybe 3 to 4 years, I've heard maybe even more. You want people who are just dedicated to the mission, and they're not looking for the money in return. You know what I'm saying? Because you're going to invest a lot of money yourself. So why would I want to bring somebody on who wants a salary and I've put in over $30,000-$40,000 into my nonprofit and I'm not getting nothing in return? Like, I'm doing it just because I want to give to the community. So why would I bring someone else on board who wants a salary? If you can't come on board and just do what I need you to do for me in the community, then I don't need you on my board in the beginning or at any point. I mean, for the most part, if you could stay away from salary, then stay away from salary, because a lot of companies out here are using interns and all of these different things as as people to help them push forward. So if there's a way for you to stay away from it, stay away from it. Like, if you don't have to do salaries, don't do salaries. I'm sure eventually you may want to pay yourself, but Tracy will tell you there's matching grants out there. So
there are.
Even when it comes to salaries, you don't really necessarily need to pay yourself back. Apply for matching grants. And when I say matching grants, I'm sure Tracy could give you more on that, because that's where I learned it from. But but go ahead, you got
absolutely. There's matching grants that basically whatever you're putting into the organization, you can eventually apply for matching grants that will match that amount. Now, organizations, foundations, they know that nonprofits have to eventually have salaries and that salaries are a part of it. But again, you want to focus on proving yourself first. This is a huge mistake that a lot of people make. They go into it and they immediately go to salaries. This is what I want my salary to be. This is why I want this salary to be. But they put a lot of energy into that, as opposed to the energy of building the program and showing that the program is impactful. The impact has to come before the salaries. And a lot of times, basically, you want to have enough to be able to cover salaries, and that's when you naturally grow. So embrace that process. So once you have enough and it's coming in, and you're like, you know what? We have enough coming in. We can go ahead and have a full-time. Now, okay, let's make a full-time director, or let's get a full-time CEO or whatnot, because that's coming in that way. But you can't do it backwards. You can't start with wanting that and not having solid programs, not having proven systems, not doing your show and tell and sharing, so no one knows your organization. It just gives a bad taste sometimes for a lot of funders in a lot of funders' mouths. Like, okay, because what is a salary? A salary is a pay for your work. So if you're asking me to give a salary and I can't see your work yet, what you asking for then? You know what I mean? What are you, I'm confused now, because I haven't seen what you're actually going to be doing. And a lot of times people prove themselves first when they prove themselves through that passion. Like you said, you want to make sure that people are passionate about this and they're doing it for the right reasons. So a lot of times you can get interns, you can get volunteers. I've had some interns and volunteers that have worked harder than some of the people that are getting full-time salaries, just because they're there, they're wanting to learn. They know that a lot of times the energy that they get back is not necessarily going to just be in that monetary value. It's in learning that journey and seeing that journey, and then being able to, oh, wow, this is how it works. Oh, this is how you impact. This is how you create change. That in itself, sometimes, that education is paying itself. So sometimes keeping your budget low for the salaries to begin can make the process, when you're first starting, can make the process go a lot smoother. Gayla said, I've heard of people going into the stores with their letters and talking to managers. Let me tell y'all about this. I meant to say this. I'm glad you mentioned it, Gayla, right before. They walk out with a check. She's heard they walk out with a check or gift card, Target, Walmart. Let me tell you something about leaders. No leaders, they see their energy. And sometimes you'll just be like, you know what? Even if they shock you, like this girl that came in here and, you know what? What did I do for her? I've had people, let me tell y'all about my beginning journeys. The very first place that I got for one, because I started in business. A lot of you all know my story. I started in business, ran several successful businesses, started my first business at 10, started coaching businesses. And then I fell into a nonprofit, coached them, and was like, you know what? I just want to coach nonprofits. These are the people that are really out here, really doing the work. They're for the community. And those were the type of businesses I wanted to coach, which nonprofits are a business, by the way. But my first facility I got was in a mall. And I know nothing about nonprofits, but I realize now that I used the nonprofit method to get this facility before I even began. So this space was empty. It had been empty for like 3 or 4 months. And, it was my first business. It was like, my second business. I had a daycare before that in my home. But it would be my first location. And if you guys know anything, you know about it, Kendra, I know. commercial real estate as opposed to
Yeah.
private real estate, it's a
Yeah.
different bracket. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because that's
And
what
if
I'm
you're
in.
talking about
Yeah.
a mall, it's a whole different bracket because you have
Yeah.
people, this was pre-COVID, you have people that are coming through the mall. You have natural organic advertisement. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this place has been empty for a while. I was like, let me talk to the manager, ask about how much it is and things like that. So went on ahead and I didn't know what I was doing. This was years ago. I didn't know the wording or anything. Contacting the manager, found out how much it was, and it was way above what I could spend. It was $3,000 to be exact. And I was like, I got to pay for employees. I have to pay for, for just running the building. I have to pay for advertisement. I was like, that was way above what I could spend at the time. And I said, okay, $3,000. Place remained empty. Went to the mall again. This is in Denton, Texas. It was empty again. Like 2 months later, I'm like, you know what? Let me call them back and ask them, what is it something that they could do, a discount or something? So I called back again. I'm like, you know what? Is there a discount or something? Or it's empty? Maybe there's something I could do while it's empty. Well, what I found out, probably 10 calls, because I bugged this lady. They gave me the place. Okay.
Yeah.
They
Don't
gave me the
stop.
place for 10%, $300 per month of what it was, because I kept bugging her. I kept asking her. I'm like, well, it's empty. Nobody's paying y'all nothing. Well, I
So you
ended
can
up
make
negotiating
something.
what is called a temporary lease, which basically means, you know what, while this is empty, we're going to go ahead and let you do something in here while it's still, and then once someone is available and someone can take it on, they'll let you know that, hey, this is available. Someone wants it. If you want to go up to this price now that you've been operating, you can go ahead and take on the larger amount that it is. People stay on these temporary leases for sometimes 2, 3, 4 years, depending upon what's going on in the market. So there's all kinds of, ways, different ways that you can get buildings or the items that you need for your budget or the staff you need for your budget. Being willing to, number one, be flexible, pivot around. And number two, put yourself
Right.
out there. That's what you've been talking about.
Yeah.
Put yourself out there. Ask. Be willing to bug somebody. Like, oh, okay. Well, it's still empty. So, y'all not getting nothing. That was just common sense to me. Like, it's empty right now. So right
Yeah.
now you're not getting
Make
nothing.
something.
You know
So
what I
make
mean? And
something.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so you have to be willing to do that. Thank you, Gayla, for mentioning that again, guys. Be willing to put yourself out there. This is such a good topic. Thank you, Juju Bean. Thank you so much.
Thank
Let's
you.
get
You're
it.
welcome.
Absolutely. Look, we're just making sure we don't have any other questions as we wrap up here, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for this hour and a half. This was like a movie. Was it one more?
Reg,
Mm-hmm.
he said
Hey, Reg.
this may be a little bit more for a different topic, but he said if you accepted donated items instead of grants, how would you document the items you gave away to youth or undeserved? Like, how would you document those donations?
That's perfect. That's a great question, Reg, which just basically you're documenting the value. And I'm assuming that's what you did too, Kendra. You document the value. So
Yeah.
that's a donation. You look at the value, and that's how much you got is the
And I
value.
put everything on, and I make sure I put everything on my letterhead, even if the company doesn't request it. I make sure for my records, I put it on company letterhead and I print it out and I file it so that way I can always go back to say, okay, I was given this and this is what I did with it. You know what I mean? Tangible. So you have tangible results. So always make sure, even if they don't request it or require it, you know what I mean? You put it on your letterhead, and I put it on my letterhead. So all the Walmart grants, they don't want it. They didn't want anything from me. They said I could give them pictures, maybe if I wanted to, or I could send a letter to the manager if I wanted to, but they didn't require anything from me. So what I did, I put it on the letterhead and I put it in a drawer and I filed it. So that way, okay, here is what you did, here is what you gave me, and here is how I spent it. I sign it as the executive director, and then I file it away.
Your due diligence, and just keeping track of everything. And some people may ask that in the future. They may say, hey, do you have any, and you can be able to provide those things. That is absolutely true. Guys, making sure that you're keeping track of what you are getting, how you're spending what you are getting. And this is huge personally and when it comes to nonprofits and businesses. Because a lot of times it's easy for us to ask for more. We want more. Oh, we need more of this. If you're looking at the need, it's easy for that thing to get bigger and bigger. But it's harder to say, what's my funnel doing? How am I funneling what's given to me? How am I
Right.
holding myself accountable to how I'm spending this? How many people did this impact? What did these funds, no matter what it is, if it's $10 or $10,000, how did I use that in a way that furthered my mission? So that's huge. Oh, and Valerie just said, I really appreciate this live, my nonprofit, an awesome place. Yes, we set that up. We'll be providing autistic children with speech and occupational therapy. My goal is to open the center this coming August. I was beginning to get overwhelmed in my thoughts about how this will all be funded. Thank you all for providing multiple options for receiving funds, service, products. That's awesome. Absolutely. And like I said, we're going to jump into that SBA as well coming up here for you all this week. We'll be talking more about that since this went some time. And I don't think we missed any other questions. We got them all there. Yep, these were just comments. When asking for donations is the beginning. Is it better to ask for a particular amount range if your nonprofit doesn't have a large enough footprint yet?
I mean, I did. Like I said, when I applied for Walmart, they give up to $5,000. I asked for $5,000. Now, some I would say $2,000 or $3,000 if they were further out of my area. Then I knew that it was kind of risky and they might or might not give it to me. So I wouldn't ask for too much because I don't want to sound like, hey, you're being greedy. So, so I would say, hey, just, like a little 2,000 or 3,000 here. But at the end of the day, you could say if you wanted to apply for them all and say $5,000, what they'll do is they'll give you what they want you to have at the end of the day. So it's okay to ask for a particular amount. So like I would say 5,000 and they may say, no, we're going to give you 2,000. And that's just what it is. Lockheed Martin, I applied for, you know what I mean? Like, I think I asked them for like 10,000 and they gave me 1,000. It is what it is. You can ask for what you need. They'll give you what they want you to have anyway. So don't be afraid to ask.
The most important thing is to have a budget and have a flexible budget. So your budget might look like what the number might look like what 20 people. It may affect 20 youth. Well, guess what? If they gave you half of that, all right, so now I'm gonna have to do this program for 10 youth. I'm still affecting youth. I'm still creating impact. I'm working with what I have. You know what I mean? So once you have the numbers, you can definitely move them around. And the same thing there, Camilla, when it comes to a clothing donation, same thing. You'll just figure out what that value is and you'll jot down the value there and it'll be the value of the donation. Absolutely. So I think we answered everything. Thank you for saying so long.
No problem. I told you the day was yours.
I appreciate it. Yes, guys.
No problem.
So, I asked beforehand, like, tell me if you got anything to do. Absolutely, guys. So I'm big on respect of time. Thank you. So, guys, I have definitely missed you so much, Miss Coming here. If you guys want to reach out to Colorful Dreams specifically, and you're in Louisiana, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they're in Louisiana. If you happen to be in Louisiana or you just want to reach out, you have a shared mission around youth, around mentorship, guys, we're going to include all of their links in the description as well. And the best way to reach out to you is just your contact page, or is there a particular social media forum?
Not either one. I mean, they can go to the Colorful Dreams Facebook if they want to reach out to me, or they can go to the contact me page, and then I'll track it and I'll get back to you. Just for questions, just if there's more you want to do for those websites as well, I'll make sure I give them to Tracy. And if you have any more questions about any other websites that I may know, again, like you said, you can reach out to me. I'm always open to help.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we so appreciate that help. Absolutely. And then guys, also donate. There's donate buttons on her website if you want to volunteer. Same thing. Next week, we're going to be continuing this theme of funding, and we will have a beautiful young lady coming on here who actually just retired not too long ago. I won't say the numbers because I don't know them exactly. I want to make sure I do them right. But she retired. She actually used to approve grants. So what she did was she determined whether they were approved or whether they weren't. And her passion is for small nonprofits. So she's going to be coming on giving tips as to why she didn't approve them, the one that she did approve, why she did, and tips as to how you can be more grant friendly and make sure that everything is together so that you can easily have those approvals when you do apply for the grants. So that's going to be coming next week. And then next week, that'll be next Saturday at 11. And then next week, Wednesday, we're going to be doing some nonprofit hot seats. We're going to be talking about some SBA funding as well, because that's coming up here. And you want to make sure that you take advantage of that as well. So guys, so make sure you join us then. Thank you so much for joining. Happy New Year again. I hope you all are going to be doing some more things to just relax and do some planning. Hopefully this video helped for you to get those juices flowing as to how to go into the new year with your nonprofit. Guys, if you are on our mailing list, make sure you join our mailing list on at clarkandclark.org. We're going to be sending out an email here later today that just has a kind of write-up of everything that our nonprofits have done over this year, which is awesome. I've been looking at it like, oh my goodness, sometimes you're in it and you don't realize, but then when you start adding up the amount of donations that they've received and the people that they fed and the domestic violence survivors that they've housed or that they've mentored and things like that, you just really realize the impact that you have. So we're going to be sending that out, as well as, of course, our newsletter, so that you guys will know when and what we are doing each of these days. So thanks again for joining us. Remember to create those win-wins. Be willing to knock on the door, right? Be willing to put yourself out there. Any last thing you would give to new nonprofits? Maybe this is their first time or they decided that this year one of their resolutions or intentions is to start in the nonprofit world. What would you give?
Be fearless.
Be fearless.
Yes. Be fearless. You got to get out there. You're the face. You got to get out there. Ego and pride to the side, and just go. Don't think, don't overthink, don't think about it, just go. When you think about it, you talk yourself out of it, so just go. Do it. We all got it in us. If it's there, we got it in us to do it, so just do it.
Just take those steps, take those steps, take those steps. That's it. We will end on that note, guys, and I will see you all in the next live.